front half.
There it is.
Do a split jump. Wow.
Hey Chris, we're going to take a look at your animation and talk a little bit about it and see if there's anything we can do to make it better or not. Let's have a look. Okay. It's cool, man. So Chris, you sent this in, with the preface that, you were looking at how to kind of take a piece of video reference and interpret it and break it down, and this was something that you had worked on and you left it for a bit and you want to return to it. So I guess what's a good thing to do is let's look at the little piece of reference that you were using. So I did download it after you told me where it was. So here's I believe this is the section. So let's have a look. Here she goes. It's really cool. Yeah, and you had said that you liked the character that she has and how kind of into it she is, particularly at the end. So, I think honestly, Chris, you've nailed it. I think this is a difficult piece of work to critique because, as an exercise, I think you've done what you needed to do. I think if we look at the girl here, that when she's the little bit that you said that you're interested in is the way she's kind of really happy about what she's done. She knows she did it good, right? She's playing to the audience. And I really see that. I really see that in your work at the end. Like I really feel that. And I think what's particularly interesting is how, you've been able to take this view, which is more kind of from the reference and really translate it well to 3D. Whether that's necessary, like if this was for a game or something, obviously it would be, but if it was for a shot, maybe not so much, or if you were trying to shoot it from a slightly different angle or something. And something that I think you really have done, and I can tell you've spent time on this, is, looking at the live action, there's all these really lovely things that, I think they're more, you do see them more now, but for a while, you wouldn't in CG see stuff like this, where you have like someone breaking the IK leg, and like these kind of wonderful shapes, and coming back to your animation, unfortunately sync sketch resets every time, but I can see these shapes in your posing, and like it's really interesting how important those kind of things are, like when you come and see like the twist of these shoulders, the twist of the torso there, how this foot is completely flat, all those things, like there's a lovely change between this, hang on. Like what that illustrates is like the change between like a key like this, and a key like this, because you have this like, this is kind of a passing position, nothing super clever, but when you feel those lovely contact frames and those keys that really are about the character, like I would almost argue this one even more so, it's just such a lovely flow. And again, you've got that kind of, it's almost like you take the knee and pull it back, which is probably, maybe you are doing something like that in the rig. And Chris, what I'm not going to do is sit here and tell you a bunch of things to improve on this, because we can always improve, but I think that as an exercise it seems kind of pointless. Like I would even look at something like this and and put the question, is it worth doing any more to this? If the purpose of what you wanted to do was take a piece of live action and follow a, invent a process for yourself or follow a process of how to interpret it, I think you've done that. And it's up to you whether you want to take this and polish it and sweeten it up. In my mind, it's a piece of animation that works for that purpose. So I think if you want to talk about how to improve this, I think they're higher level goals. And I think one of those is, what I would say about this is it's kind of an unusual thing to watch, because you, as an audience member who's completely new to it, I'll be honest, when I first saw this, in the first couple of frames, you kind of get the sensation, okay, it's kind of a fantasy character. I can tell by her costume, she's, I don't know, kind of a fantasy kind of style character, and she's doing something that seems a little out of character for that character. Maybe that's not true. Characters can do anything, but it's like, I would say that it feels a little odd. Like probably what would have been better would to have a character that's a gymnast, but you might not have access to that, and that makes sense. And I think, we just work with what we have, and I think that's a good thing. But I think maybe what you need to do at this point is to think, okay, so is there a way in which I can make this more interesting? Like, could I shoot it differently? Like shooting something, particularly in this kind of dual view format, it really makes it look like an exercise. And our role as animators is not to make things move. Our role is to like entertain the audience watching it. That's what we're doing. Like, it's not about polishing, which is why I suggested don't do any more to this. It's like, you could maybe take this and shoot it differently, choose an angle you want to shoot it from, but give it a camera move, maybe put it in a little setting that makes it seem funny, that makes the slightly kind of, the way that what she's doing and her character doesn't quite fit, make it fit. Think about that somehow. And then there's something as well, like, that she does in the video, which is quite cool. So she does a little thing at the end, she's enjoying herself, and then bonk, and then she looks right at the camera. And like, in a lot of ways, like, a character doesn't have to look at the camera to connect with the audience, but there's something there that's nice. Like, it's like a little bit of punctuation that is entertaining for the audience. Like, it's a lot more interesting than her just doing this. Like, when she actually connects. And like, if we come back to your video, I think for that same reason, this view is a lot more successful, because we can see her face, we can see what she's feeling, and this is you, right? Because you can't see that in the reference. And to me, this is the most interesting part of what you're doing, because I think that really, even though you said in your notes that this is quite early days, it's quite scruffy, I think it looks great. Like, the expression on her face looks really nice. Like, she has that kind of, that kind of smile it's not like a cheesy smile. It's kind of like a confident, I'm not doing it. It's like a confident smile, That's interesting. It's like the bits that you're making up are more interesting than the bits that you're kind of working through as an exercise. So I guess, where do we go from here? I mean, what you could do, is, so my suggestion would be, take what you've learned from this and do another one. Do an animal, or, do something with this character that is more in character, with something that fits a little better for how she looks, or something that's just generally kind of more entertaining, right? And use what you've learned from this to get towards that. But you could also, make this kind of more interesting. And I think that a way to do that would be to, you know, if you really did kind of want to play with the timing, because the timing feels very realistic. And I think quite rightly so, like at the end, the way she moves like this, it feels great, you know, but it you know, it feels great as in it looks realistic, which is interesting sometimes, but usually something that's pushed or is an interpretation of realism is way more interesting to the audience. How much time we got? And so, you know, maybe do that a little bit on the earlier parts. Like, you know, maybe take what you're doing here and change your timing. You know, instead of it being like if you look at the video, you know, the timing of her I don't know what to call it, her jumps. You know, if you actually look at it, it's kind of linear and not very exciting. Boom, boom. You know, like I feel like timing wise, the interesting parts are like at the top of that arc, like how long she hangs for, you know, before she falls. And then I thought when I was scrubbing through this, yeah, you see, that's cool. Like, you know, I'm not saying redo everything, but like, you know, looking at the kind of motion that she does here, like, just those kind of things, just more interesting to watch. So you could work into these flips. You know, you could have some more hang time, have some more, you know, some more crunch, some more compression. You know, like these. Like what doesn't quite translate here is that, you know, in the gym, that gymnast, she's on like a cushiony surface, so it has some kind of recoil to it. And so when we look at this, it does feel a little strange. Like, it's okay here, but, you know, like at some parts of this, it feels a little bit like, you know, just as watching a piece of animation and not a piece of live action. What you want to feel is like, you know, this is probably too much, but you know, you kind of want to feel like those shape changes, you know, because they feel nice to watch. You know, they're more enjoyable for some reason. You know, I'm not sure we really understand why that is, but like seeing things move in contrasty ways is just nice. We just like it as people. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm pushing this too far, but you know, just having some of that, like, maybe not, but you know what I'm talking about. You know, trying to compress some of this a little bit more. Yeah, it's a funny one, Chris. I think this is really good work, and I would. My advice would be, don't do any more to it. You know, try and take what you've learned from it and do something else, or, you know, clean it up if you want to. But I wouldn't suggest that. You know, you could go really far with it. You know, you could have instead of just flipping like this, you could do a different flip, something more interesting, something that she couldn't do in real life. You know, and there are things that you know, her arms, you can tell, are very realistic, because when the gymnast is doing that, she's kind of doing her arms like, you know, she's keeping her arms in a specific shape, and that's to do with like her moving through the action, but also it's to do with the way they judge those things. You know, like there are certain weird little rules I'm sure they have about like, you know, are the arms kind of nice and tight, and they're judging all that stuff. That's how they give them a score, you know. And I think that in animation, there's room to kind of break those rules, you know, have the arms kind of have a lot more flair, have them feel like, you know, they support the motion, you know, they anticipate it, and they you know, they kind of lead the audience into what's happening. Whereas I mean, watch this now. You know, I mean, it looks cool, right? Like her arms, it's that little bit when they kind of tuck in. I like that. You know, but you could, you know, and I always struggle a little bit with drawing these kind of things, you know, but like, you know, you could sort of just, you know, you could play a little bit more with like, you know, doing something that is more interesting for the audience to watch, and that plays with what the audience likes to see, things opposing, things overlapping, you know, and then like these things could just kind of the arms could kind of creep up a little bit more elegantly, you know. Oops. Yeah, I mean, it's just a suggestion, but I'm not sure that's really what you were trying to do with this, Chris, you know, but I don't know. I think just keep going, man. I think this has been a really interesting, like quite a difficult thing to talk about because it's a nice piece of work, and it's more about, I think, asking yourself, what is this for, and what is the purpose of it, and not necessarily how to turn it into something that's like beautifully polished and beautifully finished. I think you could do that if you want to, but I think, you know, I really feel confident that what you wanted from it, you've already got, and I would continue to do that, or take what you've learned, you know, and apply it to a piece of animation where, you know, you're considering the entertainment of it, you know, and what it's saying to the audience. Yeah. Cheers, Chris.